So in this video, I thought I would answer some questions people have. Is why is it so expensive to paint a house? And if you notice, that one hasn't been painted in a long time. In fact, most of these houses haven't, and it's because the price of getting a house painted is so expensive now that a lot of people just can't afford to do it. In fact, the reason I came down this neighborhood is this is a neighborhood that I used to work in. These neighborhoods around here, several of them. And I used to paint houses here, and now when they get a bid, they just can't believe how expensive it is. So your question might be, well, why, Mike, is it so expensive? It's price gouging. These contractors are charging so much money that it's just ridiculous. Why are they charging so much? It really is not price gouging. It is actually coming from the top. One of the biggest problems we have right now is regulation. Regulation has raised the cost of paint, it has raised the cost of materials, it raised the cost of labor, it has raised everything up, plus inflation from government push. All the printed money that we've had the last few years has added to this, but it's been happening since about 2015. I've noticed less and less people being able to afford to have their house painted today than there was 15 years ago. The other problem is because of all of these things that we're going to talk about later in the video, we've had a lot of exodus. A lot of people have left California, and most of them have been tradesmen, and it's because they're making laws that are unfavorable in California for tradesmen, so they just choose to move out and go somewhere else. So literally, I've gone out and tried to hire guys to help, and they want more per hour than they are worth. In other words, they can't produce enough to be efficient for the hourly rate that they like to make. And a lot of them, it's because their cost of living is so high. So like this house here, really badly faded. All of them around here, the trim was just wiped out on that one. This one's really bad too. There's stains on the walls on a lot of them, and nobody's doing anything. And it's just going to continue like this, I believe, in the future. So the reason guys are wanting so much for their hourly rate is because so many people have left the state, because again, they keep making laws that are unfavorable for guys who are workers, and they just don't have any other choice but to leave the state and go somewhere where they care about people who did their trade. Look at the stains coming down from the walls there. You didn't notice that stain there on the bottom of that garage. These ones have it. Look at those garage doors, just completely faded out. It's really a shame. And you know, there's really nothing I can do about it. Well, you should just charge less for those houses. Just do them for cheaper. No, you can't even make money doing it for cheaper. And this is the problem. Labor cost has gone up so much. As soon as they raised the minimum wage, back in 2010, it became harder and harder and harder to pay guys. You had to start paying them more and paying them more and paying them more, because when minimum wage went up, their spending power of their money went down. So they needed a raise, and I don't blame them for it. And listen, I want you to ask anyone who works for minimum wage if they have any better lifestyle now than they did when minimum wage was even $10. And it hasn't really changed at all. But the people that make more than minimum wage are having less spending power for their dollar. So look, I mean, this one was painted not too long ago, but this one not too bad. But if you just really look at some of these, they are just seriously faded out. I mean, the trim is gone. These ones look okay right around here. I've seen several, but on the other side of the road where I'm not filming, I'm seeing a lot more. This one's faded. And again, you're seeing this is a nicer neighborhood where people have a little bit more money, but they don't have, like, I'm going to say about 15 years ago, we would do one of these houses for like about $3,500. And now it's over $7,000, $8,000 to paint these same homes. And if you get a competing bid, it's over 10. So yeah, that's how much this stuff has gone up. So the next thing I wanted to cover is the paint cost. And it kind of ties into the next thing, which is the regulations that they put on paint and chemicals. Paint chemicals have gone way up in price. And people go, well, you know, that's good because we don't need these chemicals. Listen, this is your house we're talking about. That we're talking about painting your house. The reason you can't afford to do it is because paint chemicals went up in price. The taxes for those things, California charges are higher than they've ever been. All this stuff's been done behind the scenes that you don't even know about. And everybody on top of that's had a higher cost of living with all this printed money. So all this has caused higher paint job prices for your house. Another thing that adds to it is our fuel cost. And you go, well, what does that have to do with paint? Well, paint's heavy, and it has to go on big trucks to get delivered to the paint stores and moved around. And chemicals are heavy. They go in big trucks and they get moved around. And the price of gas has a complete correlation to the price of paint. In fact, some of the paints, a lot of the paint has oil-related products in it. And places like California have actually cut production on oil. They are not allowing us to produce the oil that's already under our grounds. They have the pumps and they've limited them to less production. And that's caused us to have to get foreign oil. So all this oil now is coming from places like Venezuela, Chile, and because it has to be the same consistency of oil that our refineries have. So, like our refineries use thick oil to make fuel, and they have to get the same thick oil from other places that have it. And that's like Venezuela has the same stuff, and so does, I think it's Chile, somewhere down there. And then it comes up on a ship. And let me ask you this. If you're an environmentalist, is that better for the environment for us to go get oil somewhere else and drag it all the way up the coast and risk sea life and all this other stuff? Or just get it from our own land? We have it locally. We could just pipe it right from where it's at. There's pipelines already there. So another thing that's happened over the last 7 or 8 years is in 2020, they outlawed, made it so that if you have a 2000 or older F450 heavy-duty work truck, you can no longer, and it's diesel, you can no longer drive it in this state. Or you can if you go less than 1,000 miles, which is completely useless. Look at the faded out house there. So guys like me with a 550 truck, I'm not allowed to drive it anymore. So now I've had to replace that. That costs me money, so that gets passed on to the consumer. Look at those shutters. Wow. So then again, you know, this is what happens, is people cannot afford to paint. So their houses start to look run down. Eventually, they just get so bad, we're going to have a real bad looking place. This is a nice neighborhood. Look at this. Beautiful neighborhood. You know, who can afford to pay $10,000 to paint their home? So another thing California did since in the last 10 to 15 years is they added a paint recycle fee to paint. Well, paint was already being recycled, but they added this cost that you pay that you don't know about until you get to the cash register. You go to the cash register, you go give them your money, and guess what happens? 75 cents a gallon. Doesn't seem like much, but it adds up to the price of your paint job. Another thing that's happened is the VOC regulations from the state of California. So they decided that 100 parts per million, I mean, listen to you guys, 100 parts per million. Okay, 100 parts per million was too much. So they made it 50. So now, to make the paint 50 VOCs, it takes more chemicals, more cost. The paint doesn't last as long, and not only that, you've paid more for the materials. So, yeah, you've paid more for the paint. It doesn't last as long, and you've really net effectively over time, does that make any sense? If you cut the VOCs by 50 and you have to paint it twice as much, and there's emissions in driving back and forth to the job site and labor and all that other stuff, does that make any sense? Do you think you're really saving the environment by doing that? Another thing that they've done is they've outlawed a ton of different types of materials that you need to paint. So a lot of painters are going out of state to go buy those things. And equipment, gas equipment, you can't, they made that stuff illegal in California. And so guys who are using gas sprayers, where you're out spraying a fence way out in the middle of the boondocks, and that's really the only way that you can do it, is have something that uses some sort of liquid fuel, because you can't bring electricity out there. And now you've got to go to another state to go buy that equipment or whatever, because it's not available here. So all these regulations that the Democratic government has put together for the state of California are backfiring, and they're costing you having your house look good. Is it worth it? Do you think that it's good what they're doing? Comment below. Don't forget to like the video. And now we just got houses that are getting run down. I mean, people, this is happening to not just the paint trades, but happening to all the trades. In fact, you can see the fences have been falling down in this neighborhood. This was a really, really nice neighborhood. This is basically all of Riverside has become like this, because everything they've done has increased the price of everything up and up and up and up, to the point where people can't afford to do anything anymore. They can't afford to paint their house. They can't afford to maintain it properly. They can't afford to do all these things. They've driven all the trades out of the state. There's no trades hardly left here, so there's nobody to compete with somebody who gives you a price. And people go, well, you just don't get everything, you guys. You don't get real high wages for people and good prices. You can't do it. You get one or the other. And when you start pushing trades out, it even makes it worse, because now there's nobody to compete with them. The guys who are left, you know, are here, and like guys like me, I can't leave at this point. But people go, well, why don't you just do it cheaper? I can't, because the price of my labor, the guys who work for me, didn't go down. It's going up and up and up, because they keep raising minimum wage. And every time they raise minimum wage, it makes the cost of everything that they buy go up, and then my employees need more money. This is just how it is for everyone that's in my trade. It's just the way it is. So if you're wondering why the house prices have gone up, it's because of what's been happening on the ballots in California. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just voting is what's caused this. So if you're wondering why your house is so expensive to paint, maybe you should vote differently. It might help. All right, so I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.